Back with another reading. We'll just call this one part 5 in the reading of Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow: Mass Incarceration in the Age of Colorblindness. She goes on to say, still in the introduction on page 5, the timing of the crack crisis helped to fuel conspiracy theories and general speculation in poor black communities that the war on drugs was part of a genocidal plan by the government to destroy black people in the United States. From the outset, stories circulated on the street that crack and other drugs were being brought into black neighborhoods by the CIA. Eventually, though, even the Urban League came to take the claims of genocide seriously. In its 1990 report, The State of Black America, it stated, there is at least one concept that must be recognized if one is to see the pervasive and insidious nature of the drug problem for the African American community. Though difficult to accept, that is the concept of genocide. While the conspiracy theories were initially dismissed as far-fetched, if not downright loony, the word on the street turned out to be right, at least to a point. The CIA admitted in 1998 that guerrilla armies it actively supported in Nicaragua were smuggling illegal drugs into the United States. Drugs that were making their way onto the streets of inner city black neighborhoods in the form of crack cocaine. The CIA also admitted that in the midst of the war on drugs, it blocked law enforcement efforts to investigate illegal drug networks that were helping to fund its covert war in Nicaragua. Excuse me. It bears emphasis that the CIA never admitted, nor has any evidence been revealed to support the claim, that it intentionally sought the destruction of the black community by allowing illegal drugs to be smuggled into the United States. Nonetheless, conspiracy theorists surely must be forgiven for their bold accusation of genocide. In light of the devastation wrought by crack cocaine and the drug war, the odd coincidence that an illegal drug crisis suddenly appeared in the black community after, not before, a drug war had been declared. I say again, nonetheless, conspiracy theorists surely must be forgiven for their bold accusation of genocide. In light of the devastation wrought by crack cocaine and the drug war, the odd coincidence that an illegal drug crisis suddenly appeared in the black community after, not before, a drug war had been declared. In fact, the war on drugs began at a time when illegal drug use was on the decline. During this same time period, however, a war was declared, causing arrests and convictions for drug offenses to skyrocket, especially among people of color. Real quick, if I remember correctly, there was a neighborhood, I believe it was either in Chicago or Detroit or somewhere in that area, where it was a young black man named, they called him Freeway Rick. I believe his name was Rick Ross, who testified that yes, the CIA did fund him drugs to sell in his neighborhood. And he once said that he had so much money that he can build streets or a street to his house. I guess from the airport. I'm not sure from where, but he can build a full street with the money he had, and apparently still have a lot left over. Let us continue our reading. The impact of the drug war has been astounding. In less than 30 years, the U.S. penal population exploded from around 300,000 to more than 2 million, with drug convictions accounting for the majority of the increase. The United States now has the highest rate of incarceration in the world, dwarfing the rates of nearly every developed country, even surpassing those in highly repressive regimes like Russia, China, and Iran. In Germany, 93 people are in prison for every 100,000 adults and children. In the United States, the rate is roughly 8 times that, or 750 per 100,000. The racial dimension of mass incarceration is its most striking feature. No other country in the world imprisons so many of its racial or ethnic minorities. The United States imprisons a larger percentage of its black population than South Africa did at the height of apartheid. In Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, it is estimated that 3 out of 4 young black men, and nearly all those in the poorest neighborhoods, can expect to serve time in prison. Similar rates of incarceration can be found in black communities across America. These stark racial disparities cannot be explained by rates of drug crime. Studies show that people of all colors use and sell illegal drugs at remarkably similar rates. If there are significant differences in the surveys to be found, they frequently suggest that whites, particularly white youth, are more likely to engage in drug crime than people of color. That is not what one would guess, however. However, when entering our nation's prisons and jails, which are overflowing with black and brown drug offenders, in some states, black men have been admitted to prison on drug charges at rates 20 to 50 times greater than those of white men. And in major cities racked by the drug war, as many as 80% of young African American men now have criminal records and are thus subject to legalized discrimination for the rest of their lives. These young men are part of a growing undercast, permanently locked up and locked out of mainstream society. Let us finish page 7 and then we'll close out for this segment. It may be surprising to some that drug crime was declining, not rising, when a drug war was declared. Help us, Lord. From a historical perspective, however, the lack of correlation between crime and punishment is nothing new. Sociologists have frequently observed that governments use punishment primarily as a tool of social control, and thus the extent or severity of punishment is often unrelated to actual crime patterns. Michael Tonry explains in Thinking About Crime. Governments decide how much punishment they want, and these decisions are in no simple way related to crime rates. This fact, he points out, can be seen most clearly by putting crime and punishment in comparative perspective. Although crime rates in the United States have not been markedly higher than those of other Western countries, the rate of incarceration has soared in the United States while it has remained stable or declined in other countries. Wow. Between 1960 and 1990, for example, official crime rates in Finland, Germany, and the United States were close to identical. Again, that's from 1960 to 1990. Yet the United States incarceration rate quadrupled. The Finnish rate fell by 60%, and the German rate was stable in that period. Despite similar crime rates, each government chose to impose different levels of punishment. My goodness. So we're still in the introduction of this book by Michelle Alexander, and I'll keep calling out her name because this is a fascinating book full of truths, facts, and we're still just in the introduction. Page 7, we just finished the last paragraph on this page. The new Jim Crow, mass incarceration in the age of colorblindness. We need to be made aware, my people. And I'm talking about you, and you, everybody. My people. Whether you're white, whether you're black, whether you're Chinese or green, we need to be made aware of what's going on. And we need to come to an end, especially that blue wall of silence. We need to bring that crashing down, and we need to make sure this thing gets reformed. She's been talking about this since 2010. God bless everyone. I'll come back with another segment.